Hello everyone, Calamity here. At least that's what the government wants you to believe. And today we're taking a look at the weapon banner for 3.4 during the Alhaitham and Zhao banners. And we're going to look at his signature weapon for both characters. And as well as we're going to briefly go over the 4 stars. But I'm sure most of you are just interested in seeing the potential usage out of the 5 stars. But before we start, I always like to preface these videos by letting you know that if you are a new player, it is definitely a higher priority for you to try to build up your roster of characters rather than trying to get both a character and a weapon, or just saving your primo gems in general once you get the character. There are plenty of 4-star weapons that every character can use that can perform well enough. Alright, his weapon is called the Light of Foliar Incision. It has a crit damage substat. It's at almost 20% already, even without leveling it, which is already really nice. So I have the full stats on another monitor here that I'm looking at. So at level 90, this weapon is going to have a base attack of 541, and the crit damage is going to give you 88.2% bonus crit damage off this weapon alone. That is huge. Now, this weapon can just be simply used as a stat stick with stats like this. Any main DPS or sub DPS sword user is going to appreciate the huge amount of crit damage that the sword provides, so you can heavily invest in crit rate without feeling like you're losing out on potential damage. With that being said, let's take a look at the weapon effect. It's called the White Moon Bristle. It'll straight up increase your crit rate by 4%. At refinement 5, this is only going to be at 8%. Anyways, after normal attacks deal elemental damage, the Foliar Incision effect will be obtained, increasing damage dealt by normal attacks and elemental skills by 120% of your elemental mastery. This effect will disappear after 28 damage instances or 12 seconds. You can obtain Foliar Incision once every 12 seconds. So right off the bat, this is a terrible weapon for physical damage dealers, at least the weapon effect is, since it wants you to do elemental damage, and it will increase your damage based off your elemental mastery, which is not something you want as a physical damage dealer. That being said, this weapon is going to be fantastic, as I said earlier, either way because of the stats it provides. But if you're looking for more characters that it could be tuned well for, other than the signature user himself, Alhaitham, this could be great for Keqing if you're using her in an aggravate team. The crit damage is welcome, and most Keqings will, at least when they're going aggravate, will appreciate building elemental mastery to up their damage, and this weapon will take advantage of that stat and increase your elemental skill and normal attacks. Other characters that could also use this weapon are Ayaka, if you don't have her signature weapon, of course. While you aren't doing normal attacks with her, you're not doing normal attacks as your main source of damage with her, you can easily self-infuse her attacks with cryo and do a quick normal attack to increase the damage of your skill, although that's not how she really does damage. Again, this is mainly being used as a stat stick for her with a nice crit damage boost. It could also be used for Kea. Jingqiu, maybe if your energy requirements are needed, although the weapon's effect is completely wasted on him, except for the free crit rate. I don't really recommend this on Bennett. There are other options, like, for example, the Mist Splitter Reforged or the Aquila Favonia provide more attack than this does, or you could just opt in to use something like a Skyward Blade, which also gives him energy recharge. The other character that this could be good for is Ayato, of course. Ayato is yet another... Both Kamisato siblings basically could take advantage of this. Again, crit damage is nice for him as a main DPS, and he also does damage via normal attacks. So building a little bit of elemental mastery on him will increase his damage overall. Alright, that being said, let's move on to the next weapon. Up next, we have Zhao's signature weapon, which is the Primordial Jade Wing Spear. Very easy weapon effect. It does have a crit rate substat, and the weapon effect is called Eagle Spear of Justice. On hit, your attack increases your attack by 3.2% for 6 seconds with a maximum of 7 stacks. So you can get around like a 20 something increase in your attack, and once you reach that maximum possible stacks, you will gain an additional 12% damage on top of that. Reason why this is good for Xiao is because during his burst, he's constantly hitting, not just one enemy, but multiple enemies while he's doing his plunge attacks over and over again. However, because of the easy, trigger nature of this weapon, you just literally need to hit anything that includes normal attacks, charge attacks, elemental skill, or bursts. You will be getting stacks for this weapon, which makes it very easy to build and making it basically a universally strong weapon for just about any main DPS or even sub DPS, because again, the crit rate also helps with building your stats. If you're wondering who could use this weapon, besides of course the signature user Xiao, there are plenty. Zhongling, of course, can use it, but Zhongling is basically a free bingo slot or bingo space when it comes to pole arms, since she is so good with just about any weapon. You could use this on Zhongli if you're doing some sort of hybrid DPS build with him. Rosaria will also appreciate this weapon, especially if you're trying to maximize the passive talent where she gives a bunch of crit rate to her team, as this weapon gives you crit rate, just makes it a lot easier. Hu Tao, if you're unable to get a Staff of Homa, this weapon can work equally as well, as Hu Tao interweaves plenty of normal attacks and charge attacks while she's on the field, so it makes it easy for her to build those 7 stacks. Raiden Shogun, another optimal user, gives her a bunch of crit rate. She'll be doing a lot of attacks while in her burst form. Easy to build those stacks, and you can just feel free to focus on crit damage. Sinnoh is once again another character that could take advantage of this weapon, as he is also doing plenty of attacks on his own. Anyways, I think that's gonna cover it for the Primordial Jade Wing Spear. Let's move on to the 4-star weapons. Next up, we have the Flute, which arguably is the worst weapon on this banner out of all of them, and it gives you an attack percentage substat, I should say. Comes with an effect called Chord. Normal or charge attacks grant a harmonic on hits, granting 5 harmonics, triggers the power of music, and deals 100% attack damage to surrounding opponents. Harmonics lasts up to 30 seconds, and a maximum of 1 can be gained every 5 seconds. So as you're hitting stuff with normal and charge attacks, basically you'll do a big AoE. It's very easy to build up, but the damage that it does is very negligible. The other downside to this weapon is, of course, the attack substat. We'd rather prefer, depending on the character, crit damage, crit rate. If it's a support, maybe energy recharge instead, or if depending on what team you're also doing, elemental mastery could be more beneficial. Honestly, this weapon can be used with any main DPS or sub DPS even, but this is mainly for main DPSs, because you want to be the goal here is to be building those stacks for the harmonic trigger, but it could still be a somewhat decent stat stick for a sub DPS. But I would consider this weapon like a step up, or like a stepping stone to your actual weapon, basically. So if you don't have any other 4-star options for whatever character, this is a nice placeholder, at least until you get a better 4-star or even a better 5-star option in the future. Next up, we have the Rainslasher, which has elemental mastery as a substat, and it comes with the weapon effect Bane of Storm and Tide, which increases your damage against opponents affected by Hydro or Electro by 20%. Now that might seem kind of weird, because we don't have a single Hydro Claymore user. So you're going to have to get a little bit creative. For example, Diluc is actually a pretty good user of the Rainslasher, as long as you have some sort of Hydro support, because doing vaporized damage still counts as being affected by Hydro, which will be increased when you vaporize it. And the Elemental Mastery substat further will increase these damage of these reactions. Believe it or not, the Rainslasher, especially if you can get it to Refinement 5, which is quite easy to do, if you do pull on the weapon banner, you'll be getting plenty of these, and I'm sure you have plenty of the flutes as well. But this weapon can actually perform really well. It keeps up with some of the 5-stars even. But again, as long as you're constantly vaporizing your damage and not just doing just pure dilute damage, obviously, then it'll perform really well. Next up, we have the Lithic Spear. This is a pole arm with a attack percentage substat once again. And yet again, we also have a very short weapon effect. It's called the Lithic Axiom Unity. For every character in the party who hails from Liu, the character who equips this weapon gains a 7% attack increase and a 3% crit rate increase. This effect can stack up to 4 times, obviously because you can have up to 4 teammates. This is a solid weapon for Zhao if you were unable to get his 5-star weapon or just have any decent 5-star weapon option for him. You do not feel like... It feels like you should run a 4 Liu team, but I would advise against that. Just getting 2 stacks is good enough. So if you are, again, using this for Zhao, you already have a stack because he's from Liu. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, by the way. But that's 1 stack for free. And then you can feel free to pick another character of your choice as a support or sub DPS for him. And I feel like getting 2 stacks is good enough, because one of the best supports for Zhao is a character from Sumeru, and that would be Faruzan. So you don't want to feel like you have to bring 4 characters. And also this effect will be amplified because it's very easy to Refinement 5 some of these 4-star weapons, especially when you're pulling on a weapon banner like this. This weapon could also be good for Hu Tao as well if you're looking for other potential users. Again, another character that comes from Liu, so you get a free stack. Next up, we have the Widsith, which is probably the best 4-star weapon on this banner. It provides you a crit damage substat, and it has weapon effect, which kind of goes into a bunch of different ones. Let's take a look. When the character takes to the field, they will gain a random theme song for 10 seconds. This can only occur every 30 seconds. Resuscitative means your attack will be increased by 60%. Aria will increase all your elemental damage by 48%, and Interlude will increase your elemental mastery by 240. Now keep in mind, Refinement 5 is going to amplify the effects of these buffs, making them much larger than you're seeing right now. So this weapon is great for a lot of characters. A lot. This could be great for Ningguang. This could be great for Wanderer if you don't have a 5-star. Yaimiko. Haizo. Honestly, this is good for any main or sub DPS characters because of the crit damage substat. And believe it or not, the Widsith actually can perform better than some 5-star weapons. However, it only performs better for the 10 seconds and depending on the buff you get. Now, obviously, this is going to also depend on the character that's using this. So, for example, if you're playing Ningguang and you get Interlude, then you just got Elemental Mastery, which is absolutely useless for her. But if you play her and you get like the attack percentage increase or the elemental damage increase, then that is going to be a big boost in her damage. But again, keep in mind that this buff only lasts 10 seconds, and you can only do it once every 30. So it's only stronger than 5-star weapons, some 5-star weapons, I should say, for a very limited amount of time. All right, let's move on to the next, and I believe it's the final weapon. The last weapon we have on the weapon banner is the Sacrificial Bow. If you are unfamiliar with the Sacrificial weapon set, they all have the same effect. This one is no different. It has a substat of energy recharge, and the effect is called Composed. When you damage an opponent with your elemental skill, the skill itself has a 40% chance to end its own cooldown, which can occur once every 30 seconds. If you get this to Refinement 5, the chance to reset your skill increases. It doesn't increase to 100%, but it gets pretty close for where this effect should be proccing, at least consistently. And the cooldown will also be reduced. So the first character that comes to mind when using this weapon is Diona. Diona is a perfect user of the Sacrificial Bow, gives her energy recharge, and allows her to use her elemental skill twice, assuming it procs, giving you basically a shield up all the time and making her a really good battery. Another character that could use this is Yelan, only if you're using her as a sub DPS and or a battery, so that she can constantly generate a lot of particles. Kali is also another potentially good user for the Sacrificial Bow. Lets you throw out her boomerang twice, giving you, again, more energy particles, as well as applying Dendro, which is really important when using her. Yeah, this weapon's going to be very solid for most support characters, but not every support character. A character you wouldn't want to use this on is someone like Fischl, because the way Fischl generates energy is from Oz, and her skill summons him on the field, and he'll just stay on the field and continuously do damage. You don't want to spam the skill, because by the time Oz leaves the field, the cooldown's already short enough. Venti could also be another potentially good user of the Sacrificial Bow. Again, makes him into a pretty solid battery. And then you can use his skill twice. That's going to have to do it for the weapon banner in 3.4. This weapon banner is very, very solid overall. You get 2 really good 5-star weapons. With that being said, what do you guys think about the new 5-star weapon? Do you think it has potential to be a really strong weapon, or is it very niche? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you're planning to pull on this banner, good luck to y'all. And I'll see you all in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the content, and thanks for watching.